Welcome to this interview. My name is Martin, and I'm here with. Who are you?
My name is Joshua Armfield. I live in Luleå. I'm from Kansas in the United States, but I've lived here for 9 years now.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know you speak excellent Swedish, but I want to take this in English since we can reach some of you people who might not know Swedish. And the reason I want to talk to you is that I find your stories so fascinating and inspiring.
Yeah.
So do you want to start with something about where you come from and your upbringing?
Yeah. I come from Kansas, in the middle of the United States, from a very conservative Christian background. Grew up in a Christian family, went to a Christian school. Always voted Republican. And my dad was in the military, and so kind of grew up with that nationalism and patriotism in my family very, very strongly.
And when did you get interested in becoming a soldier yourself?
It was, I mean, my dad has always kind of inspired me or encouraged me in that way, as he was also in the military. But then in the United States, college, is very, very expensive, unfortunately. So it's the military gives very good stipends or scholarships for young people that will join the military. So that was one incentive, but then also just adventure. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, so joining the military was kind of an adventure. So there's kind of this very strong nationalistic culture in the United States. So and with 9/11 and the war on terrorism, it was a very a brave and noble thing to do, to fight for freedom and fight for your country and your values. And so this was there was a very strong wave of patriotism and nationalism that swept through the United States after 9/11. So many young people enlisted. So that was also what I did. So.
And you mentioned that your family was involved in the church. How did your church look upon the military and being a soldier?
Yeah, it was very, very much a part of our congregation, and many churches in the United States where just the American ideal is very much intertwined in faith traditions, unfortunately, and so it was in my church. We had an American flag at the front of the sanctuary, and we always stood up and honored veterans on Veterans Day, and so this was very much a part of our church culture as well.
So you decided to become a soldier in the U.S. Army. Tell us about it. How was that?
Yeah, I was 18 when I enlisted, so I was still in high school, and I didn't imagine. I never had the intention or desire to go to war. It was mostly just I wanted the college scholarships, and so I enlisted. And my recruiter, he was very clear that no, if you're going to college, then your studies will be prioritized. The military will not deploy you, and that was very much a lie. And after 2 years so I enlisted as a reserve soldier. So the smallest contract you can have as a reserve soldier is 8 years, but you do your basic training, and then you do your advanced training, and then after that you only have to do training once a month. So it's but after 2 years, I got called up to go to Iraq, and my world was kind of just turned upside down immediately, and so I had to leave my studies and prepare. We first were at a base called Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where we trained for 3.5 months and prepared for this deployment to Iraq, and so yeah, my world was kind of turned upside down with that.
What did you have in mind when you thought about serving in Iraq? What kind of images did go through your head then?
Yeah, I mean, I was really kind of, I guess, scared at first. There was, the Iraq War there was a lot of soldiers that were injured or killed in Iraq, but just being away from home for so long was also a really scary thing. But also there was this sense of honor. Yes, I'm sacrificing my life for my nation or whatever.
And you did believe in in going there.
At the time when I was deployed, I hadn't thought about these questions of resistance really, or even ethical questions of. I had thought about growing up in a Christian school. We talked about just war theory, and so there was definitely, I had thought about the ethics of war, but as far as Jesus' teachings about loving your enemies, that was never something that I had considered political in my life, and my church and the communities that I was a part of were very encouraging to go and stand up for America, this war on terrorism. We have to fight our enemies and show them that they can't do things like this without consequences. Like 9/11, they can't get away with us without consequences. So no, I was very much a part of that kind of freedom fighter kind of thing. Yeah.
So in your church, loving your enemy, was that more like maybe your neighbor or someone in your community, kind of, not in other countries? Or
right. Your brother, your sister, or your class friend, or your worker friend, or whatever it might be. Not someone that's that's threatened your country or your freedom or values. So
right. It's interesting to me to hear what kind of arguments they use to going to war with Iraq from your president and others. It was a lot to do with, as you said, connected to 9/11, although most of the terrorists in 9/11 were from Saudi Arabia, a country that the US had and still has very close ties to financially.
Right, yeah.
Right? But it had almost zero to do with Iraq. In truth, right? But they managed to convince the American people that actually they were quite close. Is that right?
Yeah. And George Bush Jr. Was president then, and his father had implemented the Operation Desert Storm in Kuwait, and so this was very much connected to that family.
And that was in the 1990s, the Gulf War. Right?
Yeah, 1990, and also I think, war is this war machine. It's a money making thing too, and things like that came to the surface as well. How Dick Cheney had investments in Halliburton, private contracting companies in Iraq during the war, and so.
But this was maybe not something you were aware of when you went to war.
No, definitely not. Bush was, he talked about these weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and connections to Al Qaeda, and how terrible Saddam Hussein was, and that we had to. So these were kind of the three main goals I remember. That we were going to go and save Iraq and America from these things. We're going to find these weapons of mass destruction. And the longer we were there, you know, the more clear it became that these weapons of mass destruction didn't exist. And Al-Qaeda connections also were non-existent. And but we did get rid of Saddam Hussein. That was something that Bush could be proud of, I guess.
Okay, you went to Iraq as a soldier and stayed there for a year or so, or?
Yeah.
And tell us, how was that?
Yeah, so I was there for a year, and it was a very long, hot year, and I just remember feeling very, very torn inside a lot about being there, about my involvement in all of that. I had a real hard time because in the military you have this camaraderie. You know, you want to you become really close knit community, and so I didn't want to abandon my comrades, my friends. And so, and I was really doubtful before we went to Iraq, because I actually had a friend that really, in many ways, changed my life, because he was a conscientious objector and had orders also to go to Iraq with us, but he refused and refused to carry a weapon and refused to participate in our trainings, and he was persecuted for it and even risked a prison sentence. And it was also because of his faith in Jesus that he had taken these that he had these convictions that also that inspired me when I talked to him, that, you know, Jesus says that we should love our enemies, and well, what does that really look like in the everyday, and so I had this kind of this before I went to Iraq, and at the same time I didn't want to be a coward or desert my friends, and so I lived with this kind of tension the whole time in Iraq. But it became also very clear that I didn't want this anymore. I didn't want to continue this way after I came back from Iraq. And so,
but in Iraq, what kind of tasks did you have? Were you active soldier, going out with weapons to homes, etc., or what did you do?
No, thankfully, I was not an infantry soldier. So, our mission was never. Our mission was never directly in combat, which I'm very thankful for. Of course, we went around with weapons. Every soldier was required to have a weapon and ammunition ready. And I was also on guard patrol. So about six half the time I was there, I was doing guard patrol, which is, you know, you're prepared to return fire if that could happen. And so it was very, very real, and our base was attacked many times. I never had to shoot my weapon though, so I'm very thankful about that. But also this culture of while we were there, you know, we never had the opportunity to leave the base, so we had very little contact with the local people, and so this very the local people were a threat. Everyone could be a threat. So we had very racist approaches to our missions there. And I can share one specific memory I have that I thought of. One of the missions we had was I was a part of a logistics company, so we drove around Baghdad and delivered fuel, petroleum, to different bases. And we were on one mission, and we did these convoys in the night, because there was a lockdown during the night, a curfew. No one could be out on the streets at night. So we would always do our convoys at night, and we'd go through these different checkpoints often. And I remember one of these convoys, we stopped at a checkpoint, and I can't remember why we were there so long, but we were sitting at this checkpoint, and some Iraqi soldiers came, and were very, very distressed, and they started climbing on our truck, and were screaming, "Water, water, water! We need water!" And we had cases of water that were strapped to the back of our trucks in case we would need it, and they wanted this water. For some reason, it was an emergency. It seemed like, but rather than give them water, no, we yelled at them, "Get off the truck! Get off the truck!" And you know, this dehumanization of, and these were Iraq soldiers. These weren't like our enemies either, you know. But our I guess prejudice in Iraq against Iraqi people was very strong, and so instead of like seeing to their needs, you know, we just pushed them away, and that was very much the culture when we were there was very prejudiced against the local people, and I think that this is very much how the military works. You know, you dehumanize your enemy, and then it's possible to kill them, to shoot them, and feel okay about it.
Dehumanize and demonize, right?
Yeah, and demon. Yeah, right. So that's one memory I have. It would have been so simple just to give water.
Okay, so you had questions in your mind about this mission and your country's role in this war. What happened after you returned?
Yeah, so I came back, thankfully, from Iraq without any serious injuries, and many soldiers came back with trauma, with mental illness that developed into mental illnesses, and I'm thankful that I was spared from that. But I was very torn as to like my participation. So I sought out I was very, like I said, inspired by my friend Jake that I mentioned before that resisted because of his faith, and so I was curious to find out if there were other Christians that also took their faith this seriously and followed Jesus' teachings about enemy love and nonviolence, and eventually found that there were other Christians that lived this way, and got in touch with a community in Kansas City that was a pacifist community and lived among the poor, and I found a lot of encouragement when I met them, because they were interested in my experience in the military in Iraq, but had a very different perspective on war and on borders and nations and citizenship, and so this really affected me and changed my way of thinking. I had many discussions with them about peace and nonviolence, and eventually became convinced that I could no longer be a part of the military and also at the same time be a follower of Jesus.
And this was it a church or a faith community or what?
Yeah, it was actually a faith community that was a part of the Catholic worker movement, which is a movement that started in the United States, and it's a peace movement and a movement for justice that has roots originally in the Catholic Church, but now it's very, very ecumenical. So it was like a community that was a part of the Catholic worker movement. But then that also opened up my eyes to other peace groups in the United States that I became connected with, the Mennonites and also Quakers as well. So,
and what did it mean for you in your role in the U.S. Army then? Because you were still a part of the U.S. Army when you came back, right?
Yeah. So I had 3 years left when I came back from Iraq, and so but this was as a reserve soldier. So I had fulfilled my orders in Iraq, but I could be deployed again at any time. But I kind of decided personally in my own mind that if I would be deployed again, that I would refuse to go to Iraq or to Afghanistan. I would refuse to be deployed because of my convictions. But as time went on and my contract neared its end, I felt more and more convicted that I needed to make it official that I was a conscientious objector, and so I ended up applying for conscientious objector status with the military, and there's a whole process for this with many interviews, and eventually I was discharged. I was not granted conscientious objector status, but I was discharged early, which I was satisfied with, and I felt like I was still able to say what I thought and what I believed about war and about the military. So,
did they say why they wouldn't give you a conscientious objector status?
No, there was very, very little explanation. I was just given discharge papers. But the United States military is a volunteer military, so there's no draft. So, and I volunteered, so there's really no. You can't be granted conscientious objector status after you've already been, after you've already volunteered. So, so I think that was their way of putting, pushing it under the table and not having to really make a big deal about it.
Maybe now I'm speculating here, but maybe they don't want to make a big deal out of it, because if that gets known and more do that, it will create a bad reputation maybe for them. Or
definitely. I mean, the recruiters are very very active in high schools and young people. So. I was so thankful to after coming back from Iraq, getting in touch with peace groups that actually work with anti-militarism in the United States and anti-recruiting. So there's actually groups that give out scholarships to young people so that they won't join the military, which is great in the United States. So.
Okay, so you were active a while in Kansas with these groups.
Yeah.
And actually doing anti-militarism activities.
Yeah.
You went to recruitment offices, or what did you do? Yeah.
Well, no, I personally didn't have a whole lot of engagement with just that. I mean, in my personal life, if I met a young person that was thinking about going to the military, then I was very, very vocal about my experience and loved discussing that. But our community was more. So I ended up moving into this Catholic worker community that I told you about, and we were very involved in resistance against a nuclear weapons plant that was being built in Kansas City at the time, but also anti-militarism. So, and then I felt like that was very much became a calling for me. Was okay. Now I've been to Iraq. I've served the military. I've been a part of that side of things. I think and one thing that is talked about in the peace movement is that we need to train for nonviolent action even more than we train for or even more than the military trains for its war exercises in order to make peace. So I've tried to engage in the peace movement to make change.
Did you feel you had to compensate in a way?
Yeah, I guess it was kind of that feeling of guilt, I guess. Wanting to do something for the right side, I guess.
I've met some Catholic worker groups in the US and elsewhere. I know they do quite a lot of civil disobedience actions. Did you take part in any of those?
Yeah. Like I said, at this the construction site where they were building this nuclear weapons plant, we did numerous actions, and I was involved in 2 actions where we blocked the entrance. Well, one action where we blocked the entrance and remained there until we were forcefully taken away, arrested by the police, and taken away. Another action where we surrounded these excavator tractors and were able to stop construction for a few hours. And it was a very liberating experience to be a part of that.
And what happened? Did you get arrested? Did you go to trial or anything?
Yeah, we were arrested and went to trial. Our sentences, we were jailed overnight. So I've never been in prison for a long period of time, but was given community service sentence. So, and that's very easy to fulfill in the Catholic worker because you're doing community service every day. So.
And now you live in Sweden. Since quite a few years. How did that happen?
Yeah, 9 years I've lived here, and my wife is from Jokkmokk, and we met in the Catholic Worker House in Kansas City. So she came there because she was also interested in the Catholic Worker movement and the peace movement, and so we lived there 3 years at the same time, and then got married and moved to Luleå, where she studied, and now we've been here ever since. We didn't know if we would stay, but we just have ended up planting ourselves here. So, yeah.
Right. And you still are active in the peace issue and other important issues, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was when we moved here. I remember being very, very surprised that, because I think it was the second year we lived here, and I found out. No, not even that. The first year we lived here, I remember passing a demonstration in the city here against NATO, and I was very surprised. Why are they protesting against NATO here? We're in Sweden, and so hearing about how NATO has war exercises here in the north, I was very, very surprised. And so that was one of the things that ended up, I guess, deepening our engagement here and our life here in Luleå, was just getting involved in the peace movement here in Luleå, and then also we ended up getting very involved with the homeless here in Luleå, and I guess we kind of decided when we moved here that well, we'll see. After Elizabeth was going to study for 3 years, but during these 3 years, we couldn't just like sit here and twiddle our thumbs and wait until she was done. But felt like, yeah, but God has put us here, so we should be living our faith and our convictions here in Luleå too. So one thing just kind of led to the other, and so we ended up starting a community here in Luleå, which we call the Mustard Seed Community in English. And it's kind of just inspired by the community that we were a part of in the United States, and other communities, just trying to live out our faith in the everyday life together, and creating peace just through everyday tasks, and living simply, and showing hospitality in different ways. So we kind of have. Can I share more about that? Maybe.
Yeah, sure.
So we have four principles, I guess, that we try to live by in our community. It's community, hospitality, simplicity and nonviolence, and these four things kind of shape our everyday life, and we share a common rhythm of prayer and dinner together through the week. Also common work with just the household work, but also the garden work and trying to live sustainably, raising food where we live, a garden, and we've had chickens and just trying to live simply, and then also showing hospitality with the space that we have. So we have, in the Catholic work, they call it Christ rooms. So giving Jesus a space in your home through someone that comes as a refugee or a homeless person. You know, Jesus says, "Whatever you've done for the least of these, you do for me." So we've been able to offer hospitality to refugees from Afghanistan and economic refugees from Romania, and also from Armenia and Ethiopia, which has been really interesting. And then just this nonviolence aspect of I've tried to be active in protesting at the military base here, F21, and being a voice for peace here in Luleå, and protesting the NATO exercises that happen every other year here, and now maybe they'll happen more often now that Sweden is a part of NATO, or will be a part of NATO. And that's been challenging, really, because there's a very, very small, I feel like there's a very small group of peace advocates here in Luleå. So, but we try to be a voice for that. Yeah. So
that's great. Thank you for that. And lastly, I came up here to do a workshop with you tonight. Do you want to talk about that?
I do. We're going to lead a workshop in conflict resolution, or civil courage, it's called sometimes. Civil courage, I guess. But and mostly, I guess, in English, I hear it called conflict resolution, maybe, or... but a workshop in how you interact in a situation on the street that you might bump into people that are in a conflict, or maybe someone that's being discriminated against, and how do you react in these situations,
or even at your workplace or family or whatever.
But so we need to train, like we were talking about, train ourselves in how to react with nonviolence and with and methods that can create reconciliation, or at least create a safer place, a safer world. So and I'm very interested. I want to interview you as well, Martin, because you have a very interesting story that inspires me very much. So maybe we can do that.
Yeah, thank you, Josh, for letting me interview you first.